I never thought I'd see a billionaire turn his jet around for a struggling single mom. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. Sitting on that cracked bench in the park, the cold metal biting into my skin, I felt the weight of the world pressing down. My eyes were swollen from crying. My heart, it felt like it was beating 2 sizes too small. The sun was shining, birds chirping, but all I could hear was the deafening silence of my thoughts. My children were counting on me. I could see their innocent faces, pleading, hungry, and it shattered me. I was drowning, barely keeping my head above water. I once had dreams of a beautiful future, a life filled with laughter and love. Now, I was a single mom grappling with unpaid bills, panicked over rent, and terrified of what my kids would say when they found out I couldn't provide. My heart raced, pounding like a drum in my chest. I had friends, but they all seemed to have it together. They didn't understand my daily struggle. I tried to smile, but inside, I was crumbling. Their laughter felt miles away from my reality. It was a cruel joke of me life, my circumstances. Each day was a new fight, a new try at hope. Then, that jet sleek, glimmering, hovering like a giant silver bird. I noticed it cutting through the blue sky. My eyes widened with curiosity. Who was aboard? What world were they escaping to? I stared at it, thoughts racing. The rich lived in a different universe, far removed from the chaos I knew. Suddenly, it veered, turning back toward the park. A gasp escaped my lips. Voices echoed, heads turned. Was I seeing things? My heart raced even quicker. Could it be? It was surreal, bizarre. The jet, so grand, so out of place, landing not far from me. The door burst open. Out stepped a man clad in a tailored suit, dark shades covering his eyes. Intense energy radiated as whispers swept through the crowd. Who was he? Why was he here? My hands trembled. Heart pounding louder, I instinctively pulled my kids closer to me. The crowd was buzzing, excitement palpable in the air. And then, he locked eyes with me. It felt like a spark flew between us, a swirl of intrigue and desperation. The murmurs around me faded. Suddenly, everything shifted. The billionaire was walking toward me, determination in each stride. My mind whirled. What did he want? It was a moment seething with uncertainty. My breath hitched in my throat. Was this a blessing or a curse? My heart raced, and all I knew was that my life was about to take a turn. But would it be for better or worse? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. My heart screamed in protest as the billionaire approached, each confident step echoing within me like an impending storm. He was a figure of poise and power, an embodiment of everything I felt I could never be. With every stride, I could feel my eyes widening in disbelief, the weight of my circumstances clashing violently with the pristine image of this man. Excuse me? The words slipped from his lips like a velvet ribbon. His voice was smooth yet carried a tinge of urgency, a tone that suggested he had something pressing to say. I felt my children shift closer, their small bodies leaning into mine as if my presence could shield them from whatever was about to unfold. That I couldn't help but notice. You. Is everything all right? There was an unexpected kindness in his eyes, a flicker of genuine concern that caught me off guard. What was this? A billionaire with empathy? My mind wanted to question his motives, to suspect that he was merely playing the role of a savior in a moment of privileged benevolence. But my heart craved the comfort of his words, the embrace of hope mingled with desperation. The air was thick with tension, and I felt the truth spilling from my lips before I could stop myself. 2M just trying to get by, I stammered, the weight of my worries tumbling forth like leaves shaken from a tree. I'm a single mom. Things are hard. My voice broke, and I glanced at my children. They watched silently, their innocence couched in fear. He studied me, those countless emotions flickering behind his dark glasses, the distance between our worlds suddenly collapsing. "And how can I help?" His inquiry was more than polite. There was an earnestness that shone through his polished exterior, something that ignited a flicker of hope in my chest that I hesitated, grappling with the turmoil of my thoughts. Should I open up? Fear wrapped with familiar tendrils around my heart as I considered what I might say. The thought of vulnerability left me trembling. My job, I cleared my throat, pushing through the suffocating silence that blanketed us. "I'm not sure how much longer I can keep it. I'm struggling to pay the rent, to feed my kids." The billionaire's eyes softened, reflecting a flicker of understanding. "What do you do?" His interest was genuine, and I sensed he wasn't just asking out of idle curiosity. "That I clean houses," I mumbled, feeling the shame then surging like a wave against my resolve. "It's not much, but it helps." "It's just not enough anymore." That he paused, contemplating my words as the reality of his privilege contrasted sharply against the raw vulnerability I laid bare. "I can give you more work," he said at last, his voice cutting through the haze of disbelief around me. "I own several properties. Staffing them properly is essential. If you're willing to work, I can pay you well." That my breath hitched. It sounded too good to be true, a one-way ticket from despair to possibility. But the skepticism was a noose hanging tightly around my heart. "Why?" He took a deep breath, lowering his sunglasses to reveal dark, stormy eyes that held stories untold. "I believe in second chances. I know how easy it is to lose everything," he said quietly, conviction resonating through his words. And that was it. The dam finally broke. My mind raced. Was this truly what I thought it was? Or was it merely a fleeting moment of kindness that would vanish as swiftly as it had appeared? Before I could respond, the weight of my scrutiny shifted, and I felt energy moving through the park. A pair of children, their laughter lifting the heavy atmosphere, bounded toward us, arms tangled in a colorful kite. The sight of their joy gave me a momentary reprieve, a taste of simple happiness amidst the chaos. "Mom." My son called out, the pride lacing his voice, brightening the approaching storm clouds of uncertainty. "Look. We want to try flying the kite." The billionaire turned to observe, his gaze softening as he witnessed the moment unfold. I saw him smile, a genuine smile that felt astonishingly out of place. Yet it transformed his sharp features into something warm and inviting. "Go ahead," I managed. Feeling the world outside shrink, the noise dwindling as I watched my children engage in joyous laughter. As tension ebbed just slightly within me, I felt something anchor. But just like that, without warning, my phone buzzed violently in my pocket, shattering the moment like glass against stone. It was a text from my landlord. "Rent due. No more extensions." Ice clawed around my spine, paralyzing hope before it could take root. The reality of my situation crashed back, its weight more suffocating than before. I blinked back tears, swallowing hard against the despair that threatened to consume me. "Are you okay?" His voice was soft, taking the broken pieces of my heart in his hands, mirroring a concern I had never anticipated. I glanced at him, the impulse to share everything around me rising within. I just got a message," I began, unsure as panic wrestled with that tiny flicker of hope he had ignited. Before I could elaborate, the contagious laughter from my children pulled at my heartstrings, and I hesitated, torn between offering truth and the sanctity of their joy. The billionaire stepped closer, his eyes unwavering. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. You're not alone in this." His warmth caught me off guard like a warm sunbeam filtering through plumes of dark clouds. As fresh emotions stirred within me, the walls around my heart threatened to crumble. But just as he reached out toward me, intent on bridging the silence, a rustle emerged from the distancia, voice booming above the hum of the park, anxious and demanding. "There you are. What the hell do you think you're doing?" All at once, the resolved atmosphere shattered like brittle glass. I looked up to see a woman storming toward us, fury etched into her features, and my stomach dropped. The revelation of who she was ignited a fear deeper than anything I had faced. My heart sank as the millionaire met her intense gaze. The confrontation was fierce, the electricity like a jolt through the air, and I felt a chill knot within me. What fresh torment awaited us in this expensive drama unfolding before my very eyes, and how might it entangle me further? The confrontation escalated before I could grasp its implications. The woman stormed toward us, her eyes ablaze with ferocity, and every instinct in me screamed to protect my children. I instinctively drew them closer, shielding them from the unraveling drama that surged like waves against the shores of our fragile hopes. "What are you doing here, James?" She spat, venom dripping from her words. "This is not a charity case for you to flaunt. You need to stop wasting your time with the help, James." His name hung in the air like an echo of betrayal, and I felt a fresh wave of anxiety coil around my gut. He stood firm, undeterred by her hostility, yet the tension between them crackled with a force that felt almost tangible. "This woman is not a charity case," he replied, his voice steady but low, as if attempting to diffuse an impending explosion. "She's working hard to make ends meet for her kids." The venom in her eyes flickered for a moment, replaced by something that felt like calculated contempt. "You think you can rescue everyone? Be careful, James. You don't want to be seen cavorting with a single mom at a park. You're a public figure now." Every word she threw felt like darts to my heart, each one laced with judgment. I could feel my children stiffening beside me, their innocent spirits vulnerable to the biting barbs of this stranger. The weight of the moment hung heavily around us as I tried to think of anything that would soften the edges of this very public confrontation. "That I don't give a damn about public perception," James retorted, a fierceness igniting in his tone that was all the more stirring. "What matters is treating people with respect. She deserves that." "Respect?" The woman scoffed, her voice dripping with disbelief. "You think she deserves the same respect as the people who keep this company running? You're losing your edge, James. You'll regret this." With every passing second, my apprehension deepened, and it felt as though each word she spoke threatened to unravel what little hope had begun weaving its way through my heart. I was suddenly overwhelmed with the sense of being a mere pawn, caught between the expectations of a world I couldn't hope to understand and a reality I desperately wanted to escape. Cringing under her scrutiny, I dared to steal a glance at my children, their small faces mirroring confusion and concern as they silently processed the battle unfolding before them. I wanted nothing more than to take their hands and sprint away, to act as if this moment had never happened, but just when I thought I couldn't bear the weight of it all, I felt a gentle arm wrap around me, a gesture of solidarity. James didn't take his eyes off her, his stance unwavering. "This is not about you or me," he whispered, almost to himself. "It's about helping those who need it." The tension blossomed unbearable, and I felt my heart race, propelled by an instinct deeper than any fear I had faced before. A warmth surged in the aftermath of his words, instilling a flicker of strength within me. Perhaps, in the face of such hostility, my voice could regain its footing. "Excuse me," I managed to say, my voice trembling but gaining clarity. "I'm just trying to do my best for my kids. I'm not asking for a handout. Don't waste your breath, honey." The woman cut me off with a cutting laugh. "It's not like hell. Listen to you." He's lost his grasp on reality. James finally turned to face me, those stormy eyes filled with something akin to despair and defiance. "You can trust me," he urged quietly. "If nothing else, I believe in your right to dignity." Her snicker hung in the air like a festering wound. "Trust?" she retorted, turning her gaze back to him. "Trusting her is like trusting a lost cause. You can't save everyone, James. You'll ruin your career chasing after shadows." At that moment, my heart pounded with a blend of fear and indignation. I wanted to scream, to tell her that I was not a shadow, that I was a mother fighting against a darkness that threatened to consume me. Yet my voice wavered, caught beneath the overwhelming weight of her disdain, and then, a flicker of an idea came to me. Perhaps it was naive, perhaps reckless, but in the crumbling silence of tension, I felt compelled to speak. "What if I'm the one who can help?" I offered quietly. James studied me, his dark brows knitting together as confusion crossed his features. "Help how?" That single word opened a chasm of possibilities within me. "What if I take the chance to prove that I can handle this job? That I can be a part of your world, however uncharted it may be?" He blinked, his surprise softening the hard line of his mouth. It was as if, for a brief moment, we were engulfed in a cocoon of hope within an otherwise stormy landscape, but the woman was quick to dismiss me. again casting a dark cloud over the brief illumination. You think you can save him? Her laughter was a brittle thing, mocking. You can't even save yourself from the life you've chosen. My heart sank under the weight of her words, but just then, I heard my son whisper, "Mom, don't listen to her." The unwavering trust in his voice ignited a spark within me. My courage surged, and I felt the need to take a stand. You may think you know my life, I said, finding my voice as I tightened my grip around my children's hands, but you don't. I'm doing the best I can, and your words won't take my hope away. I want my children to see that we can rise above our circumstances. James returned his attention to me, an unexpected warmth pooling in those stormy eyes. For a moment, it felt like my surrender had unearthed something deeper, a genuine understanding between us, yet as I stood there, emboldened, another wave arose. The woman opened her mouth to deliver another cutting remark when suddenly, I heard Ida's shrill sound slicing through the air. My phone buzzed again, vibrating violently against the weight of my terror, and as I glanced down, dread pooled in the pit of my stomach. The screen illuminated with an alert that felt like a sledgehammer to my chest: eviction notice. Deadline in 48 hours. The air grew thick with apprehension, and in that moment, as if the world had shifted violently, I felt the ground beneath me crumble, me hope teetering on the edge of despair. Would this moment of courageous defiance be enough to withstand the storm now spiraling within my reality? I glanced at James, hoping for solace but knowing that I was facing a tidal wave of uncertainty threatening to overwhelm us both. The buzzing of my phone was relentless, each vibration deepening the pit of despair in my stomach. I clutched it tightly, and the unnerving words on the screen danced in front of my eyes, blurring with unshed tears. It was the same message I had received countless times before, but this time, it felt different, more urgent, more suffocating. Eviction notice. Deadline in 48 hours. James must have seen my expression change, and his gaze shifted from the antagonistic woman to me, concern flooding his features. "What's that?" he asked, his voice gentle but edged with something sharp, a hint of alarm that urged me to reveal the secrets I had hidden under layers of shame. That I hesitated, my heart thumping against my ribcage. Telling him felt like admitting I had failed, like exposing the rawness of my reality, how I was merely treading water in a turbulent sea. But as I glanced at my children, huddled close and wide-eyed, I knew I had to share my truth. It's an eviction notice," I finally whispered, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "I have 2 days to either pay or find somewhere else to go." The shocked silence that ensued caught in my throat, wrapping around my voice as if trying to choke off any remaining strength I had. I saw the realization flicker across James' face, deepening lines of concern etched along his brow, his unwavering gaze locked onto mine with an intensity that seemed to draw the chaos closer, binding it to us. "That I wish I could help you," I murmured, the vulnerability spilling out like a flood I had tried so hard to contain. "But I don't even know where to begin." Just then, the woman scoffed, her laughter sharp and painful like shattered glass. "Really, you think he's going to fix this for you? Open your eyes. Men like him don't waste their time on people like us. You're as good as gone," she derided, but instead of retreating, James stepped forward, drawing a line in the sand. "That's not true," he replied, his voice steady yet strained. "Just because the world sees her that way doesn't mean I have to. In that moment, the weight of the world seemed to tilt. I could feel his determination radiating outward, forming an invisible shield against the negativity that surrounded us. The woman's sneer faltered, confusion knitting her brow as she registered the depth of his commitment. "Do you really believe she's a lost cause?" he pressed, a challenge lacing his tone that made the air crackle with tension. "Forget the perceptions, the rumors. There is potential and resilience, and she embodies that. You don't know what she's capable of." As his words hung like a fragile truce in the air, I felt my heart swell with an emotion I hadn't allowed myself to embrace. A flicker of hope, however tiny. But it was almost immediately doused by the reality of my situation. "James," I interjected, my voice trembling, "this isn't about me. Don't want to drag you into this." "You're not dragging me anywhere," he replied with an earnestness that sent shivers down my spine. "You matter. Your children matter. I can offer support. We can find a solution together." The woman scoffed again, but this time, it was more guarded, as if the weight of his conviction was starting to shake her seemingly unassailable poise. I felt the shifting dynamics like tilting scales. You'd really do that for me? For us? The words spilled from my lips, laced with disbelief. My heart danced on the precipice of both fear and hope, daring to believe this wasn't just an empty promise. Yes, he said, his tone resolute. If you're willing to fight, I'm here to stand beside you. I won't let you down. But before I could respond, an unexpected voice broke through the tension, soft yet steady. Mom, we've got this. My son's small hand squeezed mine, his confidence washing over my doubt. We can work together. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes. In the midst of chaos, my children were my anchors, their innocence making sense of the disconnected fragments of my turbulent world. You're right, I said, my voice steadier now. We'll fight this. The eviction, the judgment, everything, yet just as resolve began to fill the air, the woman stepped back, her face a mask of disdain and surprise. You really believe hell'll do anything for you? Think again, she spat, before her gaze flitted over to the park entrance. My heart languished in the uncertainty of her next words, then the mood shifted sharply, as if all the air had been leached from the space. James. A voice called, and instinctively, I turned my head to follow her gaze. Just outside the entrance, a figure loomed, a man in a crisp black suit, an air of authority radiating from him, followed closely by two somber-looking individuals. Who is that? I asked, my heart racing with apprehension. James stiffened, his expression transforming as recognition darkened his face. He hesitated, clearly taken aback. I don't know why they're here. It must be related to the board. What board? I asked, feeling a wave of dread wash over me. He faced me, anguish flickering in his eyes. It's the corporation. They've been wanting to meet about some changes. The air thickened with palpable tension, and the impending confrontation loomed like a storm cloud overhead. A tempest was brewing, threatening to engulf us all just as hope sparked anew. We won't let them take you away, James promised, though uncertainty loomed in his voice. But what would that promise mean when forces beyond our control threatened to collide? As the figure approached, a knot of anxiety coiling in the pit of my stomach, I felt a profound weight of revelation settling like ice across my spine. Nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. Would this intrusion be the reckoning I feared, or would it unveil a twist that could change everything? Would hope endure in the face of the unraveling unknown, or was this just the beginning of an even darker chapter? James turned back to me, his face reflecting the deepening conflict within. The choice ahead was looming, yet in the uncertainty, I sensed a fragile thread of resilience beginning to weave its way through our lives once again, though it remained to be seen if it would hold. I stood frozen, the chaos around me blurring into a dull roar as my thoughts spiraled. James' shoulders squared as he prepared to face the approaching figures, his resolve a flickering candle flame against the gathering storm. The unease that twisted my gut threatened to pull me under. Would this spell disaster, or would fate unveil a hidden opportunity? The man in the suit was imposing, his aura of authority penetrating even the thicket of tension that clung to the park. As he reached us, I noticed the stark contrast between his polished demeanor and the vulnerability of my family. The heaviness of his presence made my breath stutter, a reminder of how easily power could shift, leaving those without its shield stranded in the rain. James, the man said, his voice even, but with a hint of underlying impatience. We need to talk. You shouldn't be here, James replied, his tone firm but strained. Not like this. That I caught sight of James' fingers twitching at his sides, and suspicion mingled with my fear. What history lay between them? What legacy of responsibility and weighty expectations had he chosen to shoulder alone? Before I could ponder further, the man continued, this isn't personal. The board has made a decision, and it's time you understood the implications. I took a precarious step forward. We're in the middle of something, I began, my voice steadying itself with each syllable. Who are you? The man interrupted, examining me critically. You shouldn't be involved in this. Maybe not, but my life is at stake here, I shot back, the fire of desperation igniting my words. My children needed a stable foundation, and I wasn't going down without a fight. James' eyes flickered with pride amidst the tension, and my chest swelled with both gratitude and fear of the unknown. This is about more than corporate decisions. We're facing eviction. My family is more than just figures on a balance sheet. The man's brows knitted together momentarily before he regained his composure, shooting a glance at James that spoke volume, secrets intertwining like threads of an unspooled tapestry. Was there more at stake here than I understood? One of the somber individuals with the suited man cleared their throat. We've simply come to relay a decision regarding the estate at this location. Your involvement complicates matters. Complicates? James echoed incredulously. These are people's lives, my breath quickened. With every word, the ground felt like it was shifting beneath us. Please, can we enough, the man snapped, his patience wearing thin. We're not here to debate humanity. The eviction is in motion, and it's your responsibility to figure it out. An icy grip wrapped around my heart. It was happening. I felt my world teetering, the future I had tried so hard to salvage crumbling before me. A tide of hopelessness threatened to sweep me away, but as I looked back at my children, their trusting expressions bore into meanders in my turbulent sea. James remained firm, though tension rippled through his body. This isn't how it should end, he urged, determination lacing his voice. You can't just decide someone's fate without considering who they are. The man's face was unreadable, but then, almost as an afterthought, he said something that sent my heart spiraling. You have a week's even days to settle this. Otherwise, the deal will go through as planned. James and I exchanged glances, a shockwave of despair rippling between us. 7 days. How could I possibly find a way out in such a brief time frame? A nervous energy crackled around us, a palpable tension as if the air was charged with electricity. The man's gaze shifted momentarily over to my children, and in that fleeting moment, I sensed a hint of something. Was it pity? A flicker of empathy before it vanished behind his careful facade. Do you have any resources? I found myself asking, clinging desperately to the last thread of possibility. Somewhere we can go? Anything at all. He hesitated, and then, with an abruptness that shocked me, he stepped aside and leaned closer to James. Look, we may not agree on the ethical aspect. But you've been a valuable ally. Use your connections. It might help. With that, he turned without another word, gliding away with the 2 others in tow, leaving an audible silence that enveloped us like a thick fog. James, I whispered, my voice barely breaking free from the knot in my throat, what do we do now? I don't know, he confessed, eyes scanning the distance where the man had left, a mix of anger and confusion etched on his face. But we can't give up. There's got to be something we can do. A sudden shiver of hope flickered at the edges of despair, but the reality of the ticking clock weighed heavily on my shoulders. Mom, my daughter said, tugging at my sleeve, her voice a sweet, innocent melody that momentarily dispelled my fears. The news says the soup kitchen is collecting donations. Maybe we could volunteer to help? It might make a difference. Volunteering, I mused, the suggestion sparking something warm in the dark cloud hovering above us. It might help us connect with others, find support, maybe people will see us and want to help, my son added, though uncertainty lingered in his voice. Yes, I breathed in the possibility, allowing a flicker of determination to stir within me. It's a plan. As we stood there, the enormity of my challenges loomed large, but the budding sense of togetherness ignited a flicker of strength within me. Hope was like a fragile seed in the rocky soil of despair, yet it breathed life from the ashes of adversity. But just as I clung to that spark, a sharp cry shattered the stillness. A nearby commotion drew our attention. A woman had collapsed, hands clutching her chest, panic rising in the faces of those around her. I felt the world shift again, fear clenching my throat. In that moment, all thoughts of my own struggles slipped away, overridden by the distressing reality unfolding before us. My instinct to help surged, casual concerns eclipsed by something greater than myself. Come on, I urged my children, moving toward the crowd, ready to confront whatever new challenge lay ahead. But as James rushed alongside us, I couldn't shake the sensation of an impending storm brewing around us. Would our attempts to help lead me to a moment of grace, or would they taint me with more burdens than I could bear? In the face of the unknown, our resilience had to shine. The journey ahead glimmered with uncertainty, and yet I felt the tiniest glint of hope shimmering in the shadows. The road was going to be hard, but if courage could rise from the ashes, perhaps we could face whatever challenges awaited with open hearts together. As we moved through the gathering crowd, the woman gasped for breath, her color rapidly draining. Panic coursed through my veins. This was not what I needed, another crisis atop the catastrophe looming over my family. Yet, I felt an inevitable pull toward her, as if the universe was nudging me into action. "Somebody call 911. I shouted. I could see bystanders glancing nervously at each other, their expressions a mix of shock and indecision. There was far too much fear, yet nowhere near enough courage erupting in that moment. James knelt beside the woman, his hands hovering uncertainly before resting gently on her shoulder. "Ma'am, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice astonishingly steady despite our own turmoil. The woman's eyes rolled back slightly, and a jagged breath escaped her lips as panic rippled through the gathering crowd. "Stay with me," I urged, my heart pounding not only for her but for every agonizing moment I faced at home. "Help is on the way. Just breathe." My son grabbed my hand, his face pale with worry. "Is she going to be okay, Mom?" "I don't know," I said softly, squeezing his hand tightly. "But we need to be here for her." I watched as James tried to stay composed, his brow furrowed in concentration. There was an inherent kindness in his eyes, and I felt inexplicably proud of him. "You're going to be all right," he reassured the woman again. "Just hold on." Seconds felt like hours as we waited. Every tick of the clock screamed at us to act while the woman's breath seemed to grow ever more shallow. I glanced around, hoping someone would step up. The fear carved into the faces of countless bystanders felt suffocating. I couldn't just stand there, not while someone needed help. Did I ask anyone a nurse? I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. The crowd remained unresponsive, a tide of helplessness that crashed down on me. Suddenly, a woman stepped forward, her frizzy hair shaken from a messy bun. "I can help," she announced, her tone brimming with urgency. "Make way." My heart lifted as she rushed to the woman, positioning herself firmly at her side. "I'm a nurse." "Keep talking to her," she directed immediately to James. "I need someone to check for her pulse." James nodded, following her lead as he reached for the woman's wrist. "It's weak, but it's there. Just hang on," he told her, repeating his earlier reassurance. That I tried to focus on the woman, but amidst my efforts to remain calm, I felt my children's anxiety seeping into my bones. I ached to comfort them, but I had no room for my own fear. Just by existing, this moment reminded me of the fragility of life, the endless cycles of chaos and harmony intertwined. The nurse leaned down, her voice soft and steady. "Can you hear me? When was the last time you ate? Can you tell me your name?" The woman's lips moved, but words escaped her. My breath hitched, each moment painfully stretching itself out. As I glanced around, I spotted a face looming in the distance, a tall man in a crisp suit, his posture immaculate, contrasting sharply with the frantic scene unfolding. It was the same man from earlier, the one who had come to discuss our eviction. "James!" I called out, hurrying toward him, an idea forming in my mind. "Can you do something? We need an ambulance here. You have connections." His expression remained unreadable, but his keen gaze followed my urgency. "This isn't the time, no," I insisted, a twinge of desperation coloring my words. "If you can pull some strings, maybe we can get help here faster. You know people." "Please, for her." James' brows knit together in thought, rising to the occasion. "Just hold tight," he stated, determination igniting in his voice. "I'll make the call." As he stepped away, I returned my focus to the nurse and the woman. The air buzzed with apprehension, and I felt small amidst the chaos, struggling to help the stranger while my own world felt on the verge of collapse. Minutes felt like an eternity, and the woman's breathing betrayed her struggle. "Hang on," I urged again, tears welling in my eyes. "Stay strong. You're not alone." But in that moment, my own resolve almost shattered as I caught sight of my children's worried faces. "I'm here," I reassured them, though my heart felt heavy. A sense of helplessness seeped in, but still, we stood together, united in our shared fear and in helping our fragile fellow human. Just as James returned, a phone pressed to his ear, the sirens blared, echoing through the park like a distant salvation. Relief washed over me like a balm. I didn't know how this day would end for the woman, or for my family, but I felt an undeniable sense that we were where we were meant to be. Just when I thought a glimmer of hope was taking root, a familiar voice sliced through the chaos. What's going on here? I turned to see the imposing figure of the man from the park, the one from this morning. His expression held a strange mixture of bewilderment and intrigue. Panic surged within me, a chill embedding itself deep in my gut. Who is she? The man demanded, a sharp edge threaded into his inquiry. The realization crashed against me. I could no longer hide the vulnerability of my family. A billion questions whirled through my mind, and as sirens pierced the air, I stiffened at the uncertainty of it all. Would our struggles bear a fruit of kindness, or would this man use my pain again for his agenda? In that moment, I knew things were far from over, and the storm was only just beginning. I braced myself for the confrontation looming on the horizon, where hope battled despair, and the line between triumph and tragedy remained precariously thin. The sirens wailed like anguished ghosts, slicing through the air as paramedics swarmed the scene. I could hardly breathe, the weight of my fear pinning me to the ground. My children remained close, their eyes wide and watchful, as if any sudden movement might shatter the fragile calm that hung over the chaos. The nurse continued to administer care, her hands steady despite the condition of our patient. I felt the urgency radiate from her, and I took a moment to observe the paramedics sliding down the back of their ambulance, determined and focused. In contrast, the man from the morning, Leonardo, stood by, casting a shadow over my heart while his presence felt as heavy as lead. What's your name? The nurse asked the woman again, her voice cutting through the confusion. With an almost imperceptible moan, the woman managed to rasp, Linda. Okay, Linda, the nurse encouraged. Help is here. You're going to be okay. Just hold on for me. But my attention was pulled back to Leonardo, who had advanced a few steps closer, curiosity etched into his features. What happened? He pressed, genuine interest wrapped in an air of authority. I felt my throat tighten. Here was a man who wielded power and privilege, like an unintentional mirror reflecting back on everything I lacked. The very chaos I strove to navigate seemed to excite him, as if it were just another spectacle for his amusement. Are you a friend? He asked, and I sensed something there, an inkling of interest. It was almost too detached, but something made me hesitate, rooted to the spot. She's in trouble. I snapped. We need to focus. The rawness of my voice surprised even me, the urgency had heightened. I brushed off the confusion threatening to cloud my thoughts. Honey, he said, his gaze softening just a fraction, I can help. A discordant laugh bubbled in my throat. Of all things, I had not expected compassion from a billionaire. Help? I echoed back bitterly. You've helped enough. Leonardo began to retort, but my attention was pulled back to Linda, who had slumped slightly. Stay with us, Linda. The nurse urged, while the paramedics moved swiftly and began taking over with equipment I couldn't begin to understand. As they hustled around her, a new wave of despair weighed down my heart. The woman's life was hanging by a thread, and my family's future felt no less fragile. My mind raced through the impending eviction, a grim specter that loomed every bit as large and oppressive as the emergency in front of us. I'm sorry, I should have been here sooner, Leonardo said, finally breaking through my spiraling thoughts with unexpected sincerity. I didn't stop, I cut him off, my heart pounding in my chest. This isn't about you or your excuses. This is about her life. I gestured to Linda, overwhelmed by the dual weight of the moment. The sirens had now faded into the background. Theirs was a world filled with urgency and purpose, while mine spiraled deeper into uncertainty. I sneaked a glance at James, who was closely following the paramedics, an air of determination radiating from him. Anxiety flickered in his eyes, but I wondered if he was feeling the same mix of anger and helplessness that had swirled inside me just moments before. What if they can't help her? James whispered, his voice barely audible above the noise. That we can't think like that, I replied, forcing the words past the lump in my throat. Sometimes, the light comes from the darkest places. We just need to believe that she will get through this. Leonardo's gaze flicked between us, his brow furrowed as if my words had struck a chord. Listen, I don't want to hear what you have to say, I shot back, the bitterness in my tone revealing how desperate I really was. I stepped closer to the medical team, refusing to let myself dwell deeper in his gaze. The past was a remnant of betrayal and power dynamics that had no place in this moment. Then, with a sudden noise, Linda gasped, her body spasming and stealing attention back to her. Focus. The nurse yelled, and the paramedics sprang into action, with all others paling into the background. As I stood there, clenching my fists at my sides, a single thought broke through my chaos. The last time I felt this raw sense of helplessness, it changed everything. My heart raced, not because of fear but awareness. I had to protect my children, protect the small light of hope left amidst encroaching shadows. Just as the paramedics prepared to load Linda into the ambulance, Leonardo grabbed my arm, an unexpected move that made me freeze. "If you ever need help," he began, but I shook my head. "Get your hands off me," I snapped, surprising even myself. My defiance was a swirling beacon in a sea of uncertainty. He held my gaze, his expression shifting slightly into something less guarded. "You don't know how to ask for help. But it's there," he said, before stepping away, allowing the paramedics to take charge fully. I could barely process what he had said, an ache rising within me as I focused back on my family, my heart full of the kind of desperation that came with every moment of this chaotic life. With Linda being loaded into the ambulance, the realization washed over me like a wave. The moment was even bigger than I could fathom, teetering on the precipice. As I turned back toward my children, a flicker of intuition pulsed through me. Perhaps help would come, but I needed to be strong enough to accept it, despite my doubts. However, the vow I had made to survive fought hard against the demand to let someone else in, especially someone as unpredictable as Leonardo. Just as the ambulance doors closed with a sharp finality, the world shifted once more. My phone buzzed violently in my pocket, a notification that promised to show me something about my impending future. I hesitated, my fingers brushing the screen but my heart pounding louder, filled with apprehension. Was this a moment of clarity or an ultimatum? I didn't know how much longer I could run from the truth, whatever it may hold. The sting of the sirens faded further into the night, leaving only the ache of uncertainty in their wake. I stood there, heart still racing, as the ambulance's taillights flickered away into the distance with Linda inside, an embodiment of my own precarious existence. My hands trembled, their strength unraveling as the weight of reality pressed down. "Mom?" Jameis' voice cut through the lingering chaos, his wide eyes mirroring my own fears. "What do we do now?" I forced the corners of my mouth to curve upward, a gesture that felt foreign and hollow. "We stay strong. We focus on each other." But as I knelt down to his level, his words echoed in my mind. What did we do now, when it felt like everything was spiraling, with dark clouds gathering low over our heads? I wanted to shield my kids from the harsh winds of life, yet I was helplessly caught in the storm. My fingers brushed over my phone, still vibrating with a haunting notification, a reminder that I had not escaped my impending eviction. Maybe I could share that burden with Leonardo, though the thought felt like a lead anchor holding me in place even as I wanted to flee. "Let's go home," I finally said, taking a shaky breath as I pulled myself together. The thought of our threadbare apartment felt both comforting and suffocating, a memory of every sacrifice I had made, yet always falling short. As we made our way to the parking lot, I spotted Leonardo across the blacktop, his silhouette illuminated by the glow of parking lot lights. There was something determined about him, his posture a stark contrast to my own crumbling resolve. I did my best to ignore him, guiding my children forward while swinging my bag over my shoulder. But as we passed, I could hear him calling out. "Wait!" I instinctively tightened my grip on Jameis' hand, not daring to turn back. But behind me, I sensed his presence drawing closer. "Just a moment, please," he urged, with an urgency that seemed almost desperate. Against my better judgment, I stopped. "What?" I asked, my voice teetering precariously between annoyance and curiosity. "I want to help," he offered, and for a split second, sincerity flickered through his guarded walls. "I know this situation is serious. Help?" I cut him off again, fighting to keep my emotions in check. "You think you can wave a magic wand and fix everything? You don't know what it's like to walk in these shoes, Leonardo." His expression shifted momentarily, a flicker of something softer breaking through. "You're right, maybe I don't. But I've seen enough in my life to know that sometimes help doesn't come from expecting it, it's about asking for it, and what would you know about asking for help?" I snapped, clenching my fists, mourning the safety of solitude that had once felt invincible. "More than you think," he replied, a hint of frustration breaking through his calm demeanor. I used to think I could do it all alone. Until I made a colossal mistake and it cost me everything. His vulnerability caught me off guard, the way he spoke almost like a confession of sins, while I stood there feeling every ounce of my own burdens weighing down my spirit. But I couldn't afford to lean into empathy now. I was on the brink of breaking, and his presence was overwhelming. "Thank you for your concern, but well managed," I said, forcing the words through clenched teeth. "Just keep my card," he urged, thrusting a business card into my trembling palm. "Seriously? It's just in case." "I mean it." I glanced down at the embossed lettering, my heart racing anew. Accepting his card felt like accepting defeat, an admission that I was losing the battle I had been fighting to keep my family safe. Yet, that glimmer of defeat was clouded by a swell of uncertainty. Was it really that? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again, a sharp reminder slicing through my thoughts. I glanced at the screen, followed by a prickle of fear that coursed through me as I saw the name on the notification. The landlord. "Mom?" James' voice pulled me back from the precipice of my anxieties. That I shuffled closer to him, forcing the card into my pocket, leaving the weight of Leonardo's offer unaddressed. "Let's get home," I managed softly, moving forward despite a heaviness that pressed against my shoulders. The few steps felt monumental, each stride a reminder of everything that was slipping through my fingers. As we reached our car, I felt a pang of guilt for ignoring Leonardo's plea, but then the phone in my pocket buzzed once more, this time more insistent. Gathering my resolve, I pulled it out, my heart racing as I prepared for whatever blow was waiting for me. But then, I froze, the screen illuminating an unexpected message. "We need to talk. If you ignore me now, I'll make sure there won't be a way around this. Consider this your final warning." The words blurred into a whirlpool of panic, and I could feel my pulse quicken. In that moment, I was no longer just an anxious mother worrying for her children's futures. I was a woman standing on the verge of losing everything I had fought for. I glanced behind me toward Leonardo, who was still watching, his expression inscrutable. Would refusing his help mean sealing my fate? Perhaps the danger wasn't just in accepting help from a billionaire but in the fear of facing the depth of my despair alone. The question lingered, heavy in the air between us, as the shadows loomed ever larger. As the weight of the message settled on me like an oppressive fog, I turned back to face Leonardo. He was still standing there, watching me with an intensity that felt almost protective, though I couldn't fathom the reason behind it. The hesitation in his demeanor now mirrored the tumultuous storm brewing within me. Was he simply concerned for my well-being, or was there more at play? "Are you all right?" he finally asked, stepping closer, his tone shifting to one of genuine concern. I swallowed hard, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. "No. Not really," I admitted, feeling the cracks in my carefully constructed facade begin to splinter. "Not at all." His eyes softened, and for a brief moment, the busy world around us faded into a muted background. "You can't handle this alone," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "What's going on with your landlord?" "I wouldn't want to burden you." The words tumbled out before I could stop them, a reflexive impulse to protect not just myself but him, to a notion that maybe my struggles were too heavy a cross for someone like him to bear. Leonardo stepped closer, bridging the gap that my fear had created. "You're not a burden. You need someone to stand with you, to fight for you, and your children. You deserve that." Now his sincerity hit me like a wave, a sudden rush of warmth flaring against the chill of my fear. "But I don't know how to trust anyone. I've worked so hard to make this all work on my own. I can't just lean on me," he interrupted gently, brushing a strand of hair away from my face. The gesture sent unexpected jolts of electricity through me. "Let me help you lighten the load." That a teetering uncertainty gripped my chest. Could I really let him in? The prospect felt like a treacherous plunge into unknown depths. There was a chance of finding safety but also the possibility of drowning in vulnerability. Before I could respond, James tugged at my sleeve, his little face etched with worry. "Mom, please. I don't want you to be sad." His innocent plea shattered through my internal conflict, a reminder of the weighty responsibility I carried as a mother. I knelt, looking directly into his eyes. "I'm trying, sweetie. I promise I'm trying," I murmured, taking a moment to breathe. "Can we just go home?" he asked again, and my heart broke further. But then my phone buzzed in my pocket again, the insistent trill demanding my attention. I fumbled for it, dread gripping my gut, and pulled it out to check the unfamiliar message that illuminated the screen. Don't forget our agreement. You're running out of time, fear threaded through me, a visceral grasp that constricted my heart. I could feel the air around us tightening as Leonardo's eyes flicked to the phone in my hand. What is it? He asked, his concern sharp that I hesitated, glancing between my son's worried eyes and the imposing reality that loomed over me. It's nothing, I fibbed, knowing fully well that it was everything, Mom. Please, can we just go home? James echoed, and this time his voice wobbled, revealing the weight of the pressure I had unconsciously placed on him before I could mask the growing storm in my heart, I felt a flicker of resolve ignite. Let's just go, I said, putting my phone away entirely. I turned to Leonardo with a mixture of gratitude and guilt. I appreciate your kindness, truly. But I need to get my kids home, okay? He nodded slowly, but I could see the worry etched across his face. Just please remember my offer. You're not as alone as you think. With heavy hearts, we turned away from him, retreating toward the car like shadows in the night. Each step felt like a silent acknowledgement of all I was failing to address. Once we piled into the vehicle, I turned on the ignition, the sound seeming almost deafening in the silence that had taken over. Why do you look like you saw a ghost? My son asked, fidgeting with the seatbelt, and it felt as if my heart truly shattered then, splintering into 1,000 tiny shards. I took a breath, pouring my love and steadiness into my voice. Just a long day, baby. Just a long day, I reassured him, pulling out into the darkness of the road. As we headed home, racing against the encroaching night, I caught sight of something shimmering on the dashboard: Leonardo's business card. My heart raced again, torn between the fear of slipping further into despair and the cautious hope lingering in his words. Just as I pulled up to our apartment complex, my phone buzzed again, the screen lighting up with a new message that sliced through the remaining fragments of my composure. I opened it slowly, my breath shallow, reading the words that both terrified and bewildered me. Your landlord isn't the only one you need to worry about. Let's discuss your debts. You didn't forget who really has the power here, did you? I froze, every ounce of clarity evaporating from my mind. My world spun chaotically around me, and I felt as if the ground beneath my feet had given way. Mom? James' small voice broke through the haze, and I turned to him, my eyes wide and brimming with confusion. Are we safe? He asked, a tremor in his voice pulling at my heartstrings. But could I promise him that? I gripped the steering wheel, fighting against the tidal wave of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. My thoughts raced to the uncertainty unfurling before me, and in that moment, I knew, this wasn't just about finding help. Anna Marie, it was about facing an impending storm, one that was poised to consume everything I held dear. Would I find the strength to navigate the deluge, or would I let it drown me? The dread deepened, curling through my chest like a serpent tightening its grip as I realized how precariously close I was to losing everything. The shadows were gathering again, whispering sweetly of despair. But amidst the turmoil, I felt an ember of hope flicker within me, forcing its way through the darkness, igniting my resolve like a small candle lighting up the night. I glanced back at my children, their faces alight with innocence and curiosity, unaware of the full weight of the world pressing down on their mother. I couldn't let them see me unravel. This was my fight, one I was destined to face and conquer. After what felt like an eternity, I locked eyes with James again. We are safe, I promise, I said, my voice steadier this time as I navigated the familiar streets of home. No matter what happens, we'll figure this out together. And for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of something resembling clarity. I made a silent vow to not let my fears dictate my actions. I had to act, not only for myself but for the tiny warriors who believed in me wholeheartedly. Upon arriving home, I gathered my children close, taking a moment to inhale deeply, ready to ground myself in the present. How about a family project? I suggested, thrusting away the darkness with the vision of how we could rally our dreams and tackle the threats threatening to drown us. We can brainstorm some ideas, maybe even start our own little plan. James looked up at me, his eyes wide with excitement. What kind of project? He asked, regarding me with a dose of unbridled hope. It was so pure, so untouched by the world's harshness. And as I knelt before him, sharing in that excitement, I felt my heart warm at the prospect. A neighborhood fundraiser, I proclaimed, fueled by an idea that burst forth. We can host a bake sale. Or a car wash. We could even set up a game night. Anything to rally together the community and maybe earn a little bit of money to help with our rent. My daughter beamed, her laughter ringing bright as if defying the storm lurking just beyond our door. Can I help with the cookies? She squealed, her tiny hands already reaching as if gathering strength from the moment. Can I decorate? Yes, and I'll teach you how to make my famous chocolate chip cookies, I said, feeling my heart swell with promise glistening in her eyes. We began to list ideas, the clutter weighing heavy on my heart momentarily forgotten, replaced by a chorus of excitement bouncing between us. But then, with the buoyancy of our plans, I felt a creeping doubt slide back in as I thought about my looming eviction, the dark messages still etched in my mind. The struggle ahead still felt insurmountable. Would this plan even make a difference? The feeling gnawed at me with uncertainty. But before I could dwell too long, a flutter in my pocket interrupted my thoughts, and the slip of the card that I had shoved away tumbled out. Before I knew it, my fingers grazed the embossed surface. This is from Leonardo, I found myself whispering aloud as if my children could feel the heat of the opportunity between my grasp. I heard a small rustle, and my heart raced. What's that, Mom? James asked, his curiosity piqued. It's an invitation to reach out for help if we need it, I admitted slowly. The weight of that thought sat heavy on my heart, but they didn't seem to understand. Do it. It might be something cool. My daughter chimed in with innocent enthusiasm, her support washing over me in waves. I hesitated, battling the flood of emotions swirling within. Trusting anyone else, a billionaire no less, felt like a gamble I wasn't sure I was ready to take. And yet, the thought of resisting help when my family needed it most left the heaviness biting behind my heart. Then came a knock at the door, so sudden and unexpected that it jolted me from my inner struggle. Glancing at my children, I instinctively held up a finger to signify silence, as if the trespasser might carry all the weight of my darkest fears. Who could it be? My dread mounted as I opened the door, bracing for an unwelcome visit or a reminder that my world was on the precipice of collapse. But instead, there stood James, the billionaire with stormy eyes, radiating determination as he scanned my messy entryway with a silent understanding. Hey, he said gently, assessing the atmosphere that hung like thick fog. I thought I should check in. Is everything okay? The sincerity in his voice sent warm tendrils of gratitude curling through me. I hesitated, uncertain how to allow him into my chaotic world. But as his soft gaze met mine and the ghosts of my struggles walked forward, a potent blend of fear and vulnerability, I felt no other option left. Could we talk? She finally managed to ask, my heart pounding in my chest as I invited him inside. Forcing myself to step back, I ushered him in, shutting the door against uncertainty and doubt. I couldn't keep him beyond my walls any longer. I had to face the storm before it consumed us. As we settled onto the modest couch, my children snuggled beside me, their presence fortified my resolve. What I need to talk about is how to save my family. James nodded, a flicker of understanding dancing behind his stormy eyes as if he comprehended that the discussion would embrace more than just an offering, and as the words began tumbling forth, me fears, our collective weight, the message from my landlord, I felt a vulnerable strength starting to crack through. Perhaps admitting we weren't mighty enough to face the storm alone was the strongest thing I could do, but then just as I laid bare my spirit extended his hand toward me, holding the warmth of his unshed intentions in his palm, offering a part of himself unconditionally. You're not alone, you know. I want to help you through this. Not just because you're fighting, but because you matter. And so does your family. The sincerity in his voice enveloped me, anchoring my heart that had fluttered between fear and trust. It was there, in that brief but powerful moment, that I saw him for who he truly was, not just a billionaire or an ally hidden behind privilege, but a man willing to understand the burdens of others, the weight they carried. And just like that, I felt an unfamiliar strength unfurling, woven of the strongest threads of vulnerability and trust. With James beside me offering not just solutions but solidarity, I finally felt like we had a fighting chance. Together, we began forging a plan, a partnership of sorts, to take back control over our lives' narrative this time, with the strength of many instead of the burdens of only one. As I watched the light dance across my children's faces, happiness sparking like stars in the night, I dared to breathe with newfound possibility. We could either face this storm together, or we could break apart entirely, and I wasn't about to let fear dictate our fate. "Thank you," I whispered softly to James as he partnered with us in our pursuit toward restoration, holding as tightly to this fragile thread of hope as I did to my family. And at that moment, I began to envision the culmination of all I had fought for, a world woven together by the threads of compassion and empathy, binding us all toward a brighter tomorrow. Together we would rise not as isolated fragments swallowed by the storms of life, but as a powerful tapestry stitched with vibrant colors of resilience. As my heart echoed with the promise of a new dawn breaking on the horizon, I whispered back, "We will be okay." And for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I believed it.